this correctly. If I do this and go over here. Greetings and welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. We're delighted that you have joined us, whether you're in person here in our center, or if you're part of our Zoom family, or if you're viewing us on Facebook or YouTube. If you're viewing on Facebook and YouTube, we invite you to like, comment either on the content of the talk, or let us know where you're viewing from. We also would like for you to share, subscribe, and follow. This is how we continue to spread the message of love out into the larger global universe that we are a part of. Today, we are continuing with our September theme, Love Out Loud. And we are exploring the timeless commandment, love thy neighbor. And I've added a tagline this week, which says, navigating contemporary challenges. Today, we acknowledge the end of Rosh Hashanah. This is the Jewish New Year. Rabbi Taviz Freeman offers this about Rosh Hashanah, and I found it very interesting and in alignment with the teachings of Science of Mind. He says, the most important renewal of life is that which occurs on Rosh Hashanah, because it is when all life of the previous year returns to the essential source and a new life, such as never known before, emerges from the void. The life of the previous year returns to its essential source, and out of that, a new life emerges, such as never been seen before, and it emerges out of the void. And we talk about, and I shared with you last Sunday, how things come out of the void. And if you are familiar with our teaching symbol, it is that middle part, where we teach it to the children in youth church, the seed, the soil, and the plant. So when that seed is planted into the soil, that darkness of the soul, that is the void. And that is where creation begins to take place. The commandment to love thy neighbor is an invitation to return to the essential source of all life. Found in various forms of religious and philosophical teachings, it calls us to extend love, compassion, and empathy to those around us. While the essence of this message remains unaltered, we must also address the unique challenges that our fast-paced digital and globalized society presents today. Thus, the tagline, navigating contemporary challenges. Ernest Holmes offers this in the Science of Mind textbook on page 503. Without love, nothing can be accomplished. With love, all things are possible. We love, our prayers are answered, and the gift of heaven is made. Science of Mind teaches that the presence of the divine is always with us. And as we live consciously aware that everyone around us is an expression of the divine, this is where unity takes place. The global vision of Centers for Spiritual Living is to create a world that works for everyone. And I add to that exactly where they are. To realize this, however, we must ensure that everyone's voice is included and acknowledged in creating a world that works best for everyone. We're neighbors to the person living next door, and we are neighbors to individuals from diverse cultures, backgrounds, and belief systems around the globe. So the question before us today is, how do we practice this age-old commandment in this time of complex and modern context? So we're looking at the complexity of the time and the context in which we're living. Loving our neighbor very simply involves accepting people for who they are. Accepting people for who they are. Welcoming people of all ages, races, sexual orientation, political affiliation, spiritual beliefs, cultural backgrounds, and life's experiences expands our understanding of love thy neighbor. To truly love our neighbors, we must be open to understanding diverse perspectives, engaging in respectful dialogue, and seeing common ground. Remember, our spiritual teachings emphasize unity and our responsibility to bridge the divides. So we are building bridges over what it is that divides. We have the incredible power of technology to communicate and connect. However, technology can foster isolation and depersonalization. To love our neighbors in the digital realm, we must practice compassion. Before responding to a comment or a message online, let us remember that there is a real human being on the other side with their thoughts, their feelings, and their struggles. And I had a recent experience of doing this. One of my colleagues posted something on the minister's listserv, and there was some language in there that I found personally offensive. And so rather than doing a blast on the listserv, I responded to the person privately. And when they responded back, I gained a new perspective and a new understanding of how the language was being used and in the context of where it is being used now. So it was an opportunity for me to grow, to come out of the belief system that I had in the 70s and the 80s and even into the 90s, and to adapt to what is currently taking place in the language of our greater global society. So it's these situations where we have the opportunity to be respectful, to engage in that respectful communication, and to think before we react or respond. We think before we react so that we can respond in a reasonable and a compassionate manner. Creating spaces of loving kindness in our families for people who think differently than we do is a place where they can be heard. You know, it's often said that our families, and these are our families of origin. We have our families of origin and our families of choice. Our family of choice, in some situations, tends to be more accepting and affirming and compassionate and loving. Whereas our families of choice, even though we grew up, you know, in the same household, I don't have brothers and sisters. I'm an only child, so I don't have that experience of the sibling dynamic. However, I did observe some of it with my late wife because there were 7 of them. And that could be quite a dynamic. 6 girls and 1 boy. So that could be quite a dynamic. When we recognize that family members with opposing beliefs, social or political ideas, philosophical or religious beliefs, we create the space for everyone to expand their understanding of love. And guess what? It only takes one person to do that. It only takes one. Are you willing to be the one? If you're experiencing that in your family dynamic. We don't have to agree on every subject to love one another. We certainly experience this here in spiritual community. And I really honor and treasure our board of trustees because boards can be, I've been in situations where church boards, you know, you would think, wait a minute, are we in a spiritual community or are we out on the street corner? Some of the tension that takes place within church boards. I must salute Monterey. This is one of the most interactive and compassionate boards that I have been a part of for a very, very long time. So it shows that we can come together and we can agree to disagree and we can still love each other because love is the basis of who we are. It is the basis of what we are. by making space for everyone to advocate for and expand their beliefs is essential. Loving discussion allows us to shift into a higher evolution of being. Now, I recognize that this can be a lot easier said than done. But I'm reminding of the teachings of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, verse 25, and I'm sharing this from the New International Version. Jesus is teaching, settle matters quickly with your adversary. And of course, as practitioners of truth, as New Thought metaphysicians, we know that there is no adversary. And so our call is to be and to practice extraordinary kindness. We do that by loving ourselves first, by demonstrating extraordinary loving kindness to ourselves, taking care of ourselves, our bodies, our mind, our physical, the whole body, mind, body, spirit connection. One of our CSL ministers, Reverend Bonnie Rose, offers this thought for reflection. What if we're just figuring things out, doing the best we can with a beautiful yet sometimes challenging emergence? God bless it all. God bless the perceived mess, which is evolution in disguise. All historical shifts toward human rights begin with people advocating for each other. This is getting back to our CSL global vision of creating a world that works for everyone where they are. Ernest Holmes, again, in our Science of Mind textbook on page 298, reminds us of this. Think of the whole world as your friend, but you must also be a friend to the whole world. So this is a two-way street. It's a reciprocal action. Think of the world as our friend and be a friend to the world. People of all races and ethnicities participated in the 1960s civil rights movement to abdicate Jim Crow laws in the Southern United States. Today, there are nonprofit organizations working worldwide to rescue enslaved peoples and those entrapped in human trafficking. If we desire more love in our communities, we have the tools of love, compassion, mindfulness. To lead to this shift, we can support marginalized people in our communities by consciously engaging in our own self-healing work. Again, it gets back to loving ourselves first so that we can love someone else. By doing our own healing, by training ourselves, by being open to an expanded thought process, if you will, or an expanded belief system that stretches us, that takes us into that mess, into that goop of the cocoon where things are really breaking down and this unknown, which we can thank COVID for. That isolation has created this mess that we're coming out of. And so we are creating something new. It's like we have our foot on both sides of the train track, if you will. We want to move forward. We want to be part of whatever the emergence is. And at the same time, this is more, maybe a better analogy, is driving a car with your foot on the brake and the foot on the gas pedal. You don't make much progress. You've got to release one in order to do something with the other. So as we take the brakes off, if you will, of our previously preconceived notions and ideas, we open that space for love. That's where we create the self-healing, and we open ourselves to love ourselves, and then we love others. When we study the history of the New Thought movement, we discovered that we are considered misfits and rule breakers. All of us who are part of this teaching were misfits at some point, in another tradition, or in maybe a tradition that we didn't practice. And we're the rule breakers. If you look at the early stages of the New Thought and the metaphysical movement, those were some wild actors. And even today, just look at our own science of mind teaching, our belief system. We recognize that we are set apart from many traditional practices. And it's engaging with individuals of those traditional practices where that friction can occur, if you will. As rule breakers, as misfits, as innovators. That's what I think I like the word innovators better than misfits. We are innovators. And so we have the opportunity to innovate our teaching and our practices just by engaging in respectful conversation with those who may have a different belief system than we. In our CSL organization, there is a new focus on, it's not new, but a revised focus on social activism. And again, it's causing a lot of stir on the ministers' listserv. People who cling to that traditional thought that Ernest Holmes did not create a political teaching or a political environment. Social activism and political involvement are two different things. We are not a political movement. We are a spiritual movement that speaks to a world governed by the laws of humanity, and we're offering a redeeming balm, the tools of consciousness. So as we bring our consciousness of loving one another, our consciousness of seeing a world that actually works for everyone, this is how we engage in social and spiritual activism. Martin Luther King Jr. offers this: the church must be reminded that it is not the master or the servant of the state, but rather the consciousness of the state. It must be the guide, the church must be the guide and the critic of the state, and never its tool. If the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it would become an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority. I think therein lies our challenge. To engage in social activism is to speak up for those who are marginalized in any form or fashion. We recognize our inner transformation is demonstrated on the outer. Thus, our commitment to supporting people of different identities and abilities shifts the consciousness of all involved. One of my teachers in ministerial school coined the phrase, "Our consciousness makes a difference." Our consciousness makes a difference. And he invited us to personalize it by saying, "My consciousness makes a difference." So I invite you to personalize that this morning and say with me, "My consciousness makes a difference." My consciousness makes a difference. And again, back to our founder, Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind textbook on page 332, he writes this: "The unity of good is a revelation of the greatest importance, for it teaches us that we are one with the whole and one with each other." And so our call to action this morning as we wrap this up is, remember that we can love out loud at any time, not only just during the month of September, but it's our responsibility as people of faith to love out loud all of the time. Some of the ways that we can love out loud: consider providing financial contributions to organizations that advocate for human rights. Celebrate those organizations on social media. Now, I know a lot of people are not on social media, and it has its pluses and it has its minuses. But if you are active on social media, Celebrate those organizations that are doing good in the world. In your personal life, practice radical forgiveness. Demonstrate what radical forgiveness looks like to others, so the concept of forgiveness can be understood and applied more often in the communities that we engage in. Living by example, loving each other, regardless of our differences, is the perfect way to create a world that works for everyone. Now I invite us to say together our affirmation for this week. I see every being as a divine expression of love. Let's say that again. I see every being as a divine expression of love. And I invite us to pray together, recognizing the allness of God, this all-prevailing presence. Knowing that there is one life, there is one power, there is one source, there is one highest idea for good in this entire universe. And that can be summed up as God, as source, creative intelligence, whatever it is that resonates with each one as a higher power. This is what I know to be true, that I am one with this highest vibration, with this highest energy. I am one with God. And as I recognize my oneness with God, I see the oneness with God in everyone that I meet. Those that I know, those that I don't know, and even those that I may never personally contact with. I know that the allness of God, the essence of source, is expressing itself in and through and as each one. And so as I set an intention to love my neighbor as I love myself, I recognize that I must practice loving kindness and compassion and love for myself. And when I do this for myself, it automatically extends outward into the places where I show up. Because as we say in our opening song, I am the place where God shows up. And so this morning, I speak this word knowing that we are the place where God shows up. God shows up in our lives as divine opportunities for creative expression, divine opportunities for right livelihood, divine opportunities for healing. And I lift our congregant and board member, Georgia Diminu, and her sister, Jan Thorpe, in prayer this morning. Jan was admitted to the hospital yesterday, and Georgia is with her, ministering to her. And for those names that I don't know, those who are experiencing the appearance of an illness or a setback or whatever it is, I know that the healing power and presence of God is right here, right there, right with each individual. And so I bless each one on their journey of awakening, their journey of remembering that God is all there is. I speak my word this morning for places where individuals are gathering in the name and nature of love, knowing that there are many paths that lead to the one source. And it is out of this one source that all creativity expresses itself. And so in loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, our reach is beyond borders. Our reach is beyond perceived differences. Our reach is beyond anything that appears like something other than the divine essence, the divine spirit of God. And so for this and so much more, I am eternally grateful. And I release this prayer, I release this treatment back into that law, which always says yes. And I invite you to affirm this with me as we say together, And so it is. This is our opportunity to practice and participate in gracious giving. We have an affirmation of abundance that I would invite us to say together now. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And so for those of you who are here in the center, we have a donation box on the glass table in the hospitality area. You may leave your donations there. You may also mail in your donations, and the address is on the screen. You may text the word give to the number 831-246-9694. And you may also donate online to our center, MontereyCSL.org. And I'd like to put in this little ad for our newsletter. While you're on the website, click on the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber to the newsletter, so that you can be updated on what is happening here at the center. And for those of you who live outside of the area, if Monterey is a destination at any point, know that you are welcome to come and fellowship with us, to engage and to receive and to exchange the love that is a part of this community. And so I would like to say good morning. Wherever we are on the planet, it is morning someplace. Good morning to our YouTube viewers and to our Facebook viewers. Reminder to return next week, where the message is love wins. And remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow us so that this message continues to go out. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next Sunday.